So I'm going to assume that you're in the market in 2021 and you're looking for a computer, particularly a laptop. And the important consideration for you, if you're on the Windows operating system, is simply one thing, and that is, should you choose an AMD or Intel CPU? So it's not just about reputation. Both companies have a good reputation. But of course, as a user, you're more concerned about your experience and the price you would pay. So this is a very simple article that is on the msn.com website, and I will leave the link for this article in the video description. There is a set of paragraphs in this article further down that make the point very well. For a user, you can simply ignore the technical information unless you're really interested in it. So you can read about that in this article at a later time. This here is the part under this subheading, AMD versus Intel, picking the right platform. From here starts some information in a set of paragraphs that would be relevant to most users. So what does it say here? It says when you choose a processor from either AMD or Intel, you're not only buying that CPU, but also into the company's platform. To use an AMD CPU, you need a motherboard with an AMD chipset and socket. The same goes for Intel with a motherboard sporting an Intel chipset and socket. Once you buy one, you need to replace the CPU and motherboard to switch company. So the entire insides of your computer is connected with which CPU you get. Picking Intel or AMD locks you into that specific platform unless you change motherboards. So if you change the motherboard, you've literally changed the entire inside of your laptop. The same goes for buying a pre-built PC with all the components already installed. If you choose an AMD platform, you'll be locked into it unless you switch out the motherboard. Likewise with Intel. But which is better in the long run? Should you go with Intel or AMD? So this is the part that would be most practical for you. This largely comes down to price. AMD processors tend to be more affordable than the Intel counterparts, allowing you to score a great deal on the processors themselves in pre-built PCs. Buying an Intel PC with similar specifications could see you paying out $100 or more. This is similar to AMD and NVIDIA regarding monitors. So once you know that you're paying less for AMD for the same kind of quality, sometimes you're getting better quality with an AMD processor. And that's a general statement. But at a certain price point, when you go for an AMD or Intel, if you're paying less for AMD at around the same price point, chances are you're getting better performance. That has been the experience of a lot of users. Not going into any technical details about the number of cores and threading and how much gigahertz a processor delivers and boosting and all that. None of that. Simply, as a user, at a certain price point, AMD is to be preferred over Intel. So, what the article clarifies further on, AMD owns the budget end of the processor market with the excellent Ryzen 3 3100 and Ryzen 3 3300X. These are multi-core processors that can be found for around $100. This allows you to not only build yourself a more affordable PC, but also sees PC builders charge less for a reasonably powerful system. Why I'm covering this information will become clearer later on in the video, because I'll take you to my online store that is built on Amazon. But to tell you already in advance, the processors that I've included for the Ryzen laptops are the Ryzen 5, 7, and 9, not the Ryzen 3. So the lowest end has been eliminated, and in reasonably good quality, which comes with the AMD Ryzen 5, 7, and of course the top of the line AMD Ryzen 9. Those are the laptops in that section. And I have another section for premium Intel laptops on my online store. And there I have not included the Intel i5, just the i7 and the i9. Although there are a lot of good laptops with the Intel i5 processor alongside a graphics card or a GPU, but I have not included the i5, just the i7 and the i9. So this is one of the articles that I've considered. Simple language, simple and practical advice. The other article that I looked into is Geeks for Geeks, and it says in the difficulty level, it's easy. It was last updated on May the 31st, 2021, and I will leave the link for this article also in the description for the video. It tells you what Intel stands for, Integrated Electronics, where it is from, Santa Clara, California, and Silicon Valley. AMD stands for Advanced Micro Devices, and you can look into that information. And there's a table here with more information about the differences, the similarities between Intel and AMD. And what is the part that applies to a user? This, I think, was a relevant part. Laptops powered with Ryzen processors often clock lower and less aggressively compared to Intel-powered laptops. They often run cooler and longer on battery. Thus, for laptops, when higher iGPU performance and longer battery life is preferred, Ryzen-powered laptops can be used. Although, when building new desktop PC, older FX series CPUs, A series APUs, and should be avoided for their higher power consumption and heat output. So heating is often an issue with gaming laptops, and it has been the experience of many users. Now, of course, the graphics processor is going to generate its own heat and it's going to consume its own power. But as far as the CPU is concerned, it is a better idea to go with Ryzen if you're looking for a chip that will stay cooler and use less battery. So keeping those things in mind, I have on my online store created two sections, and these two sections are Ryzen laptops and premium Intel laptops, as I was telling you. So this makes it as easy as possible. You simply pick which processor you want to go with. And there are some manufacturers like Asus and Acer that have been using the AMD Ryzen processors 5, 7, or 9 for some time now, and a lot of their models have these processors available. Of course, other brands too, but primarily I found Asus and Acer to be the ones that have used the AMD Ryzen processor. And then for premium Intel laptops across the board, you have all the major brands using Intel, and newer models too, which are coming out, like the ones that are featured here on the top of the online store by Acer. So already there are screens available with a refresh rate of 240 Hertz or 144 Hertz, and all of these laptops are using the Intel chipset. So, of course, there's also the Apple computers that are running on Intel, which are included in this list. So not only Windows-based, but also Apple computers. For the Ryzen, you will only find it with Windows-based systems, which is the bigger market for those who are using for laptops. Apple has its own dedicated market, of course, and many newer models have come out in 2021 and 2020 also. So there's plenty of choice in the Ryzen processor among laptops. So my recommendation would be for you to go for Ryzen laptops based on what we have already considered. At a certain price point, you are getting better performance, less battery consumption, and comparatively lesser price. So once you enter into Ryzen 5 or 7, if you compare those with the Intel 5, the i5, and the i7, then perhaps it's a better option to go with the Ryzen. From what I've read earlier, when you come to the Ryzen 9 or the Intel i9, if you're looking for peak performance, then it's a toss-up. Sometimes the Intel i9 would give you a better performance, and sometimes the Ryzen 9 would give you better performance. So those who are entering the market at that price point might be a little more picky, and for good reason, because they're paying the big bucks for these laptops, which are the top of the line laptops. But for those entering the market for the Ryzen 5 or Ryzen 7 or the i5 or i7, my preference since 2020 would be to go with the AMD Ryzen laptops. That is what I would recommend to you. What do you think about it? I've made this video from the point of view of a end user, who has a certain amount of investment he wants to make. He's not concerned about technical details, but only the user experience. And for that user experience, of course, both can give you good user experience, but my preference starting for 2020 and through 2021, and also for the future, I would say, would be to go for Ryzen laptops. And the brands that I've considered are the ones that are giving you premium quality for the price you pay. And I think that is what matters in the end to any user. So what do you think about what I've told you, what I've shared, the models I've included on the online store? If you have any suggestions, any feedback, please do share. But this is, as I've mentioned before, for a user or a buyer who has come to the point of purchase, and now he only finally wants to decide where he wants to make the investment. And these are my recommendations in the two categories: premium Intel laptops or Ryzen laptops. And do go through the whole online store. Whatever other category interests you, be sure to go through that. You might find things other than just the subject at hand that you would find interesting. So that's all the time for today, and I hope you find this information to be useful. Thank you for your time, and bye-bye.